Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Third Room. Let the Shadows Speak. Part 1. The Advertisement. I should have trusted my gut. There's a voice we all learn to ignore. A tightness behind your ribs, a pulse that skips. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it screams. Mine said, don't sign the lease. But when you're 23, halfway across the world, broke and trying to make sense of life, you don't listen to gut feelings. You listen to price tags. It started with a listing on a dusty corkboard at the University of Dornstadt. A printed flyer, quiet studio available. Private, fully furnished. Rent negotiable. Close to transit. Available immediately. There was a little tear-off tab at the bottom with a number. I took it without thinking. Dornstadt isn't in any brochure. It's a small city tucked against the Swiss-German border, built like a spiral, old cobblestone at the center, ringed by newer, cheaper neighborhoods. I was there for a graduate program in historical linguistics, which, let's be honest, meant I had no money and even fewer options. So when I met the landlord, I wasn't picky. His name was Herr Casper. Late 60s, wiry, polite. He met me in the courtyard of the building. Old stone, 3 floors, half the mailboxes taped over. You're American? He asked. I nodded. Good. Americans don't ask too many questions. That should have been the second red flag. But again, broke. Desperate. Alone. He led me up 2 creaky flights. The apartment was better than I'd hoped. Compact, yes, but cozy. Wooden floors, a window that looked over the tram line, shelves already built in. Kitchenette, writing desk, small bathroom with antique tile. The hallway outside was narrow and oddly angled, like the building had shifted at some point in its history. Heat works. Rent is negotiable. No smoking, no guests, and never open the third door. I blinked. Sorry, the what? He pointed behind me. There were 3 doors inside the apartment. 1 to the bathroom, 1 to the closet, and 1 at the far corner. Narrow, painted the same beige as the wall. I hadn't even noticed it. That one stays shut. Always. He smiled politely, but his eyes didn't smile at all. I'll give you a discount if you agree. Now most people would walk away. But again, that voice in my gut was faint. Rent was half of what I'd budgeted. It felt like fate. So I signed. The key turned with a metallic crunch. I moved in that night. Part 2. Small sounds in still places. The first week in the apartment passed quietly. Almost too quietly. It took me a while to notice. At first, everything seemed normal, better than normal. The bed was soft. The tram was close. I finally had a space to myself. A real space, not just some student housing with thin walls and roommates who couldn't cook rice to save their lives. But by day 3, I noticed the silence. No sound from neighbors. No creaking from upstairs. No footsteps in the hallway. Even the street below seemed quieter than it had the day I viewed the place. I told myself it was just good insulation. Lucky acoustics. Nothing more. But then came the clicking. It started late at night, never before midnight. A soft, repetitive sound, like fingernails tapping lightly against wood. Not sharp, not frantic, just methodical, rhythmic. Faint enough that I thought I might be imagining it. But it always came from the same place, the third door. I'd wake in bed, covers up to my chin, blinking in the dark. And I'd hear it, click, 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 like something gently tapping from the inside. I hold my breath. Wait. Sometimes it stopped quickly. Other times it went on for hours. Once, around 3 a.m., I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. Dead silence. Then one tap. Deliberate. Like it had waited for me to listen. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I texted my best friend back home, Jamie, and told her about it. She replied immediately. Dude, get out. That's how horror movies start. She wasn't wrong. but I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. I started keeping a journal, partly out of habit, partly because something about the apartment made me want to write. I hadn't kept a real journal since high school, but now I found myself compulsively recording every little detail. Even stranger, I started dreaming. Vivid dreams, more like places than stories. I saw a spiraling staircase made of stone, wet, crumbling, lit by lanterns that flickered and hissed. I dreamt I walked down for hours, never reaching the bottom. The walls around me whispered in a language I didn't recognize, though sometimes one word came through clearly. Zurich, return. I don't speak German, but I looked it up. It means go back. To what? I didn't know. By the end of that week, the third door began to change. Not visibly. No scratches, no movement, but I felt it. The same way you can feel someone watching you in a room, even when you're alone. A pressure behind your eyes, a tension in your neck. I started avoiding that corner altogether. I didn't even like to look at it. One night, I came home from a lecture and my keys slipped through my fingers as I was unlocking the front door. They slid under the third door. I froze. I just stared, paralyzed. I didn't want to touch that door. Didn't even want to kneel near it. But what choice did I have? I grabbed a spatula from the kitchen, lay flat on the floor, and tried to fish the keys out. I kept my body as far away from the door as I could. After a few tries, I caught them. Just as I pulled them back, something knocked on the other side. 3 knocks. Slow. Measured. I scrambled backward, heart pounding, hearing clutched like a weapon. And then, silence. I didn't sleep that night either. The next day, I confronted her Casper. I found him at the front of the building, sweeping the stone walkway like always. His posture was too still, too practiced, like he only moved when he knew someone was watching. I need to ask about the third room, I said. My voice came out smaller than I expected. He didn't look up. There is no third room. I gestured toward it. But it's there. There's a door. And something. I think there's something inside. He paused. You agreed not to open it. I haven't. But something's in there. That's when he looked at me. Really looked at me. And for a moment, his eyes were full of something like fear. Or guilt. Or both. There is no third room, he repeated. And if you're smart, you'll stop treating it like one. I started to protest, but he turned away and walked inside, his broom still in hand. That night, the clicking started again. Only this time it didn't stop. By 2 a.m., it had grown louder. Sharper. More insistent. Like nails against the doorframe. I curled up in bed, headphones in, music loud. But even with the volume up, I could still feel it. That subtle pressure. The sensation of being observed. Not watched, studied. Then, around 3:30, my phone lit up with a text. It was from a number I didn't recognize. Did you open it yet? I didn't reply. I didn't move. Another text came. It's patient, but it remembers. That was the last straw. I called Jamie the next morning. I think I'm going crazy, I said. She didn't laugh this time. Her voice was flat. I don't think you are. I hesitated. What? Because I looked up your building, she said. And well, I found something. Part 3. The Architect and the Spiral. When Jamie said she'd found something, I expected it to be an old crime report, or a bad review, or maybe just a Reddit thread complaining about mold. Not this. I was curious, she said over the phone, so I searched for your building. You said it's in Dornstadt, right? Corner of Veilstrasse and Hock. Yeah. What? Well, first, it doesn't show up on Google Street View. Like at all. I paused. That's not weird. Some places opt out of that stuff. Sure. But then I checked satellite view. It's just gone. Like there's a blur where your building should be. A literal smear on the map. My stomach sank. Keep going. So I went deeper. I started digging through archived records and old PDFs, city planning documents, local news reports, that kind of stuff. And I found something weird. She sent me a photo. It was a scan of a yellowed newspaper clipping dated 1919. The title, in blocky black ink, read, "Local residents protest unholy construction." I scrolled down. The image was grainy, but I could make out the building. My building, still under scaffolding. The article mentioned a reclusive architect named Emil Wren, who designed the structure after returning from spiritual travels in Eastern Europe. According to the piece, residents objected because of the building's shape. Apparently, the floor plan was modeled after something called a negative spiral, a geometric inversion believed in some occult traditions to contain entities. The last line read, "Wren claimed the building would house and bind the remainder, though it is unclear what he meant." I looked around my apartment. Every wall suddenly felt too close. The air too still. Why would he do that? I whispered. Jamie didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I think your apartment's not just haunted. I think it was built to be a prison." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The third door was in the exact corner of the apartment, the tightest angle of the spiral, like the tip of a funnel. Everything in the building's design narrowed toward that single point, and that point was inside my room. That day, I skipped class and went to the city records office. I told the clerk I was researching architecture for a project. He barely looked up. After some digging through dusty file drawers and a database older than I was, I found the original blueprint of the building. And there it was. 3rd floor, Unit 3C. A clearly marked note in shaky handwriting. "Do not seal." Right where the 3rd door was. I made a copy, shoved it into my bag, and left. That night, the apartment felt wrong again. More wrong than usual. The tapping had evolved. It wasn't soft anymore. It was scraping, like something was running claws along the inside of the door. I sat on my bed, shaking, phone in hand. Another message came through. "You brought it closer." It's remembering. I didn't reply. A minute later, "Zurich, Zurich, Zurich." I stared at the word. Return. But to what? The next dream answered that. I was back in the spiral staircase, but this time I wasn't alone. Something moved in the darkness below. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. Heavy, ancient, not just watching, waiting. The whispers in the stone returned, louder now. A chorus of voices, dry and echoing. One sentence burned into my skull. "The seal is thinning." When I woke, my ears were bleeding. Not a lot, just a trickle, but it was real. I cleaned myself up in the bathroom, not even pretending to be okay anymore. Then I made the worst decision of my life. I reached out to her Casper again. This time I didn't ask. I demanded answers. I cornered him by the mailboxes in the front hall, the blueprints in my hand, and the article Jamie sent on my phone. He tried to brush me off, but I didn't back down. Tell me what Emil Wren did. Tell me what's behind that door. Casper's face went pale. He looked around, then hissed, "You weren't supposed to find that name." What? Because Wren wasn't building an apartment. He was building a cage for something that followed him back from the east. Something older than names. He believed you could trap it, not by stone, but by geometry. Then why rent it out? I asked, half shouting. Why put people in there? Casper's eyes welled up. Because it only breaks free if the room is forgotten. As long as someone fears it, it stays. That silenced me. You signed a lease, he said softly. You feared it. That was enough. Until now. I left him there, trembling. I didn't go back to my apartment right away. I wandered the streets for hours, until the sun started to set. But eventually, I had to go back. As I stepped into the apartment, everything was quiet. No tapping, no scratching, just silence. The kind that listens. That night, I dreamed again. This time, I reached the bottom of the spiral. There was no door, just space. Black, infinite breathing space. And from within it, something moved. Not toward me, through me. When I woke, the third door was open. Part 4. The seal is memory. I didn't remember falling asleep. One moment I was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, blood drying in my ears. The next, I was waking up to the cold sting of dawn light cutting across the floorboards like a blade. And the third door was open. Not wide, just a sliver. A hairline fracture in the beige wall. I stared at it, heart pounding so hard it drowned out every other sound. My first instinct was to run, to leave everything, laptop, passport, wallet, and sprint into the street barefoot. But I didn't. I crept forward, because fear, real fear, does something strange. It sharpens you, makes the world clearer, cleaner. I could see the dust floating in the light, hear the faint hum of the fridge, smell old coffee on the counter, and I could feel something behind that door. Not motion, not presence, intention. I pushed the door open. There was no room behind it. Not really, just a narrow passage, barely 3 feet wide, lined with old wood panels stained dark with age. The air inside was dry, almost sterile, like the inside of a vacuum-sealed package. At the far end of the hallway was a set of concrete steps descending into darkness. No light, no railing, just steps. I took one, and immediately I heard whispering. It wasn't in German, or English, or anything I'd ever studied, but some part of my brain recognized the pattern. A sound like roots burrowing like breath caught in stone. I took another step. This wasn't curiosity. This was compulsion. Something wanted me to come down, but not to kill me. Not yet. It wanted to be remembered. I don't know how long I walked. 10 steps? 20? My phone's flashlight barely cut through the gloom. The walls were smooth, poured concrete, damp in places. Then the whispering stopped, and the stairwell opened into a chamber. It was circular, maybe 15 feet across, with a low ceiling and walls inscribed with deep carvings. Symbols I didn't recognize, but instinctively understood. Not language, not letters, but bindings. A memory encoded into architecture. In the center of the room, there was a shape. Not a person, not even a body. A form, like a cloak made of shadow and ash, hovering inches above the ground, as if gravity refused to acknowledge it. The thing didn't move, but I knew it had noticed me. Then I heard a voice, not out loud, inside. You see me. The words echoed in my skull. You hold my shape. You give me form. I staggered back. They built walls. They forgot my name. But you fear. The room shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. And that is enough. I ran. Didn't think. Didn't turn. I took the stairs 2 at a time, heart hammering like a snare drum, breath ripping through my throat. I burst into the apartment, slammed the third door shut, and collapsed on the floor. It was morning now, bright, quiet, the same apartment I'd lived in for weeks. But it felt wrong, like something had changed, like I had brought something back up. I packed my bags in 10 minutes. I didn't even lock the door. Jamie picked up on the first ring. I opened it. A long pause. Where are you now? She asked. A cafe. Downtown. I left everything. You need to leave the city, Alex. I know, but there's more. It spoke to me. I told her everything. The stairwell, the carvings, the voice. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said, I've been reading more about Ren. Yeah. He wasn't just an architect. He was part of a society, some kind of secret order that believed memory was a spiritual force. That the only way to contain certain entities was by anchoring them in the human mind. That's why your fear keeps it trapped. I swallowed. So what happens if I forget? You don't. What do you mean? You can't. That's part of the design. The building doesn't just hold it in place. It binds it to you. That's why it wanted you to come down there. Why it let you see it. It wants to live in your memory. I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew. I didn't go back to the apartment. I didn't need to. Whatever was down there, I'd already brought it with me. Not physically, not like a parasite, but something more permanent. I started seeing it in reflections. Just for a second. In windows. In puddles. Behind me on the subway. A shadow in the shape of a man wearing a cloak that was more absence than fabric. Never closer than 10 feet. Never moving. But always there. Always smiling. Part 5. Carrying the shape. I moved into a short-term hostel across town. Shared room. Shared kitchen. Everything smelled like burnt toast and bleach. But it was safe. At least, that's what I told myself. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that spiraling void beneath the apartment. But now, it wasn't just a dream. The walls pulsed like lungs. My name echoed in reverse. The language of the carvings was starting to make sense. The more I tried to forget, the more I remembered. I kept seeing him. I didn't know what else to call it him. Not the thing. Not the entity. It felt personal now, like it had chosen me. In mirrors, he appeared closer. In the corners of rooms, in flickering screens, in cracks in the sidewalk. Sometimes I'd wake up and see handprints on the ceiling, upside down, as if someone had been standing on it. I stopped going outside at night, stopped answering phone calls, even from Jamie. My notebook, the one I used for class, had changed. I'd open to a random page, and instead of my lecture notes, I'd find symbols, drawn in my own handwriting, spiral patterns, shapes, teeth. At the edge of every page, one word scrawled over and over. Zurich, 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 Zurich. Return. But return where? 3 days in, Jamie showed up unannounced. She banged on my door until I let her in. Her eyes widened the moment she saw me. Jesus, Alex. You look. Yeah, I croaked. I know. She sat across from me, pulled out a thick envelope. I printed everything I could find. Ren's notes, diary fragments, stuff in old university archives. Most of it's in German. Some of it's older. She paused, but I think I figured something out. She spread out the pages across the floor. Grainy photocopies of crumbling manuscripts. One had a spiral drawn in black ink, with annotations scribbled beside it. He wasn't just building a seal, she said. He was mapping a concept. This isn't just a physical structure. It's a psychological architecture, a memory trap. And you walked right to the center. I nodded slowly. So what does that mean for me? Jamie hesitated. It means you're the new anchor. I blinked. What? Ren was the first. That's why he never left the city. People thought he went mad. But really, he was the first witness. The first container. He built the spiral so it wouldn't escape. But the trap only works if someone remembers the shape. I leaned back. And now, I do. She looked me in the eye. And if you forget it, it'll become loose again. Untethered. A long silence. So, I'm a warden? No, Jamie whispered. You're a mirror. That's why it shows up behind you. It lives in the reflection, not just a glass. Of you. Later that night, I found her gone. She left a note on the desk. You're not safe, but I'll help you stay intact. Don't follow. Let me do this. Jay. Beside the note, a flash drive. I plugged it in. There was one file. A video. Grainy, time-stamped, no audio. Jamie, in some kind of archive basement, holding her phone flashlight up to a stone wall. She moves the light slowly, revealing a carving. It's the third door, exactly as it looked in my apartment. But this wall is ancient. Hundreds of years old, at least. Buried under dirt and stone. She pans the camera to the left. Another carving. Me. Not just a silhouette. A perfect replica of my face. My jacket. My posture. Etched into stone. She zooms in on one last phrase beneath it. The shape chooses again. I threw up. Everything made sense, and none of it did. I wasn't just a witness. I was part of the pattern. Ren had built the cage, yes, but the thing inside it didn't sleep. It watched. It remembered. And now, it had found a new way to escape. Through me. The next morning, I noticed something new. My reflection smiled when I didn't. Not a flicker, not a trick of light. A full, wide grin split too far across the face. Rows of teeth, white, sharp. It watched me, waiting. I shattered the mirror, but it still found me. In puddles, in the glint of silverware, in the dark of my laptop screen when it was off. Always smiling. That night, I dreamed of Jamie. She was standing in front of the original carving. Her mouth was sewn shut. Her eyes were bleeding. And behind her, a second spiral, growing, alive. Part 6. Memory Bleeds. After the video, I didn't leave my room for 2 days. I stopped trusting surfaces. Nothing reflected right anymore. Not the mirror, not my phone screen, not even my own eyes in photos. Something was always off, tilted, wrong. I started seeing numbers everywhere, scrawled on napkins, receipts, on the backs of strangers' jackets. The Fibonacci sequence inverted. I didn't understand why, but I felt what it meant. It was counting down, not time, not space, but structure. The spiral was collapsing inward, and I was at the center. By the third day, I knew I couldn't stay still. The city itself was turning against me. The lights flickered only when I passed under them. Street signs twisted slightly, as if they were watching. I called 5 numbers for a therapist. 3 didn't exist. 1 went straight to static, and the last gave me a hold tone in reverse. I walked for hours, numb, until I found myself back at the edge of Veilstrasse. I swore I'd never go back, but the building was waiting. It looked unchanged, silent, dark, stoic, like it knew I would return. I didn't have my keys anymore, but the door wasn't locked. It creaked open without resistance, as though something inside had been waiting. I walked to the 3rd floor in silence. No sound from neighbors, no echo of steps, just my breathing, and something slower, deeper underneath it. Breathing that wasn't mine. The apartment was untouched. My bed still made. My desk untouched. But the 3rd door was open again, wide this time. And at the end of the narrow hall was light. Not normal light. It flickered like candle flame, but hummed like electricity. The stairwell was still there, still damp and cracked, but I noticed something new on the walls. Names, etched deep into the concrete in every language imaginable. Dozens, hundreds, stacked atop each other. Most faded, but a few fresh. Emil Wren, Jasper R. S. Casper, Alex Watts. My name, not etched, burned. I kept going. The chamber had changed. It was no longer a room. It was a threshold. The carvings were glowing faintly now, as if reacting to my presence. The air shimmered. The center pulsed like a living wound in the world, a ragged hole through which something writhed, not quite visible, but deeply known. The figure stood beside it. Him, the shape, still wearing my face. But now it was speaking aloud. You were the last rung. Its voice was mine, exactly mine. You remember. That is enough. But others must remember too. It extended its hand, palm open, waiting. Behind it, the spiral twisted open into a place that was beneath place. Not hell, not space. Something that existed outside of measurement. I took a step back, and that's when I saw her. Jamie, tied to the wall, head down, breathing shallow. She looked up, and her eyes were full of blood. Let her go, I said, voice shaking. The figure tilted its head. She chose to know. She stepped into the pattern willingly. That makes her a vessel. Jamie coughed. Don't listen to it. It wants to spread. Through memory. Through fear. The figure smiled. You were supposed to replace Wren, but you're too weak. So now, she carries the anchor. I looked down at the floor. The spiral had changed. There were 2 centers now. 2 anchors. 2 paths. I can end this, I said. The figure nodded. Yes. Burn it. Cut it out. Forget. But you said if I forget, it returns. Looser. hungrier. Jamie choked on a breath. But if we remember, it stays. Dormant. Trapped. That's when I understood. It was never about destroying the thing. It was about containing it. Inside ourselves. The seal was us. I took a step toward the shape. It didn't move. You want to live in us. You want memory as your prison. Fine. Another step. But you don't get to choose who suffers alone. I knelt beside Jamie, pulled her close, whispered something only she could hear. Then I turned back to the shape. I'll carry the spiral. The walls screamed. The entire room trembled. The carvings lit up like molten iron. The threshold pulsed, then shrank. The shape howled, not in anger, in relief. It didn't want to be free. It wanted to survive, and this was the only way. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital. 2 days had passed. Jamie was gone. No record of her at the hostel, no phone activity, no message. But I knew what she had done. She had taken part of the burden, split the spiral, and now, somewhere in the world, she walks among strangers with my face appearing in her dreams. Part 7. A History of Witnesses. There are days I don't remember my own face. I see it in mirrors, in video calls, and ID photos, but it feels borrowed, like I'm wearing someone else's reflection, or maybe like someone else is wearing mine. I've learned to live around it. I take walks only at dawn when the shadows are weakest. I keep the TV on low static. It dulls the whispering in the walls. I speak out loud in empty rooms, just so the silence doesn't answer first. The spiral still spins, but slower now. I've started collecting things. Obituaries, mostly. All local, all quiet. Victims of heart failure, insomnia, unexplained psychosis. All connected to buildings designed by Emil Wren or his apprentices. I've mapped 11 of them. Some are long since condemned. Others are renovated, sold, repurposed. But one thing connects them. Each had a resident who disappeared. No goodbye, no trace. And each disappearance occurred exactly 369 days after lease signing. 1 year and 4 days. That's when the spiral collapses if left alone. That's the expiration date. Jamie's flash drive had more than one file. I didn't notice it at first, hidden in a buried folder called /ZRCK_A3/. Inside, a transcript, dated 1993. A psychiatric interview from the Dornstadt Municipal Hospital. Patient, Kurt Hollenstein. Age, 43. Occupation, archivist. Former resident of Veilstrasse 31, Unit 3C. The same apartment. The final entry read. I can't stop seeing it. Even when I close my eyes, it's behind them. Not like a memory, more like a hole where the memory should be. I'm its echo, its cage, but I feel the spiral tightening. I will forget soon, and when I do, the line ended there. A note at the bottom. Patient found catatonic. Admitted to long-term care. Died 4 days later. Same pattern. Same timeline. Same fate. But I'm not him. I've learned something he didn't. The spiral doesn't need to end with silence. It needs continuity, which means I need to speak. So I started writing. Not essays. Not research. Just observations. Little details I remember before they vanish. The way the entity hums when no one is listening. The places it hides when there's too much noise. The kind of people it prefers, those with gaps in their memory. Those who have tried to forget something large. They're porous, Jamie once said. Easier to slip into. I write every day now. Notebooks, margins, napkins. The words don't matter, only the act. Only the witnessing. Because if I stop, it grows louder. And if it grows too loud, others will hear it too. Last night, I saw someone watching me. Not the shape. A man. Mid-40s, beige jacket, wire glasses. I noticed him sitting across the cafe from me, scribbling something into a worn red notebook. When he saw me looking, he closed it slowly. Not at once. and walked away. He was missing 3 fingers on his right hand. I knew what that meant. He had tried to sever the memory. Failed, but he still carried it. Another anchor. Another link in the chain. I found a red notebook on my table the next morning. No name, no date, just a sketch on the first page, crude but familiar. A staircase spiraling down into a black hole. And written beneath it, in my own handwriting, "You're not the last. You're just next." It should terrify me. It doesn't, because for the first time I understand. This isn't a haunting. It's a relay. The shape cannot exist without a mind to shape it, without eyes to remember it, without fear to hold it steady. It lives in the lineage of memory. And as long as we carry that lineage, it cannot break free. The spiral doesn't end. It turns. Always. Part 8. The shape that speaks. I stopped dreaming 2 weeks ago. Not because I sleep better. I don't. But because the dreams aren't dreams anymore. They become visits. The spiral appears now, even when I blink. Carved into condensation on my window. Etched into the foam of my coffee. Burned into the back of my eyelids. I try to draw it again. My hand shook. The lines curved inward, tighter, sharper, wrong. Like they weren't following my will anymore. The spiral wrote itself. I found Jamie again. Or maybe she found me. A letter arrived, no return address. Just a single sheet, handwritten in black ink. "Alex, it's not just us. They've built these rooms all over the world. Ren wasn't the first. He was just the first to realize what it wanted. The spiral is a gate, but it's also a key, and we are the lock. I'm going deeper. If I make it out, all right. If I don't, remember me. That's all that matters. Do not let them seal it again. Do not let them forget. Jay." The paper smelled like mildew and blood. That night, I returned to the apartment one last time. Veilstrasse was quieter than I remembered, as if the street itself had stopped breathing. The door to 3C was open. I didn't use a key. I didn't need to. Inside, the apartment had collapsed inward. The furniture was gone. The windows were bricked over. The walls had cracked open like skin. And the third door wasn't just a door anymore. It was all there was. An entire wall of spiral. Pulsing. Breathing. Waiting. I stepped through. No hallway this time. No stairs. Just space. A plane of ash and echo, where sound moved sideways and the light bled upward. A sky made of water. A floor made of thought. He was waiting for me. The shape. But this time, it wasn't wearing my face. It was wearing hers. Jamie's smile. Jamie's voice. "Thank you for coming back," it said. I didn't respond. It stepped forward, arms wide. "You were always meant to return. You were built for this." The spiral moved behind it. Huge, endless, made of screaming memory. I felt myself slipping. "You wanted witnesses," I said, barely audible. "But now you want more. You want worship." The figure nodded. Fear is devotion. Devotion is power. Memory is faith. And what happens when we forget? The figure smiled with her face. I wake up. That's when I did it. I took the last anchor out of my bag. The red notebook. The one the man in the cafe left me. I opened to the last page. There was a final phrase I hadn't seen before. The spiral turns, but the story ends when someone stops listening. I read it aloud, and the spiral screamed. The void rippled. The figure staggered backward, glitching between my face, Jamie's, Ren's, thousands of nameless masks, each one flickering like a failed signal. It howled, not in pain, but in denial. "You can't close the story," it hissed. "Not without remembering me." And I smiled. Exactly. I closed the notebook. The void collapsed. When I woke up, I was lying on the sidewalk outside Veilstrasse 31. The building behind me was gone. Not destroyed. Never there. Just a blank lot, fenced off, forgotten. No foundation. No address. No memory. But I still remember. I always will. Now I teach. Community college. folklore, and psychological archetypes. My students think I'm eccentric. I wear gloves all the time, refuse to sit with my back to mirrors. I keep a notebook open on my desk at all times, spiral etched faintly on the cover. Sometimes I catch a student doodling spirals in the margins. Sometimes I let them, because if someone doesn't remember, it comes back. Not as a monster, but as a deal too good to be true, as a room in a place that shouldn't exist, as a shape in the dark that wears your smile. So I tell this story, to them, to you, to anyone who will listen, because it only takes one forgotten name to open the third door again. And you just heard mine.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.